Hello friends, and welcome to Figure Study, where we are taking a look at Revenge of the Fallen Mindwipe, also known as Skystalker's BFF. So we've got Mindwipe and Skystalker. I feel like I'm kind of obligated to cover these two at the same time. I know I've already done a video on Skystalker, so you can check that out if you want to see a more thorough look at this guy specifically. I will say, right off the bat, unfortunately I cannot hook these two up like you're supposed to, because I didn't realize it when I first bought this thing, but the eBay seller that I bought Skystalker from cut off the pegs on his legs. So because those pegs have been cut off and filed down, they're supposed to peg into the top of Mindwipe here. They cannot. There are no pegs there anymore. They're like little nubs that don't actually extend beyond his toes. I just can't do it. I cannot physically show the connection in vehicle mode. We'll get back to Skystalker, don't worry. But in the meantime, Mindwipe. I used to be kind of torn on how I felt about Mindwipe, and I actually did have this toy a while back and sold it off like an idiot because I was not entirely sold on the robot mode for various reasons, which I'll get into when we get to robot mode. I have since changed my mind, obviously. I'm a little bit annoyed at myself for getting rid of him in the first place, because Diana found him for me at a store for like 30 bucks a couple of years back, and that was such a great price, and I just should have held on to him, because I ended up paying, I think, like probably 20 bucks more for this one. Anyway, he's got landing gear. There's tiny little landing gear on the underside that you can fold up, and the one in the front actually splits in half because of the way it transforms, which is kind of a nice engineering touch. Also, if you're looking at it from the underside, you can see the robot mode head just kind of tucked up in there. Though I think with all of the other breathly stuff going on and the fact that his head is less humanoid, let's say, than some of the other movie figures, it doesn't immediately look like a robot head. He is a stealth fighter, I think. Definitely not a stealth bomber, but the overall shape, angles, and dark colors of this make me think this is supposed to be a stealth fighter, but like more of a futuristic version of a stealth fighter, or possibly like a slightly Cybertronian-influenced version of one. I think it looks cool. The Cybertronian maybe tattoos, I don't know if it's actually Cybertronian, but the tattoo stuff on the wings is a little bit like, I don't know why that's there, but I don't hate it. I also like that they've got the kind of purple accents here and there, though I will say, personally, I feel like the purple accents might work a little bit better if they were just a little bit brighter. They are visible. I don't think that they suffer from like blending in too much with the darker plastic tones around them, but I just think that they're not as visually interesting when they're that dark. Like if they were just brightened up a little bit, it would be nice. Though maybe the worry was that if they brightened those up, then it would take attention away from the shock of red for the cockpit, which does look amazing with the dark plastic all around it. And yeah, that's pretty much all I can say about Mindwipe's vehicle mode. It looks cool. I really like it. I think it's an interesting idea for Mindwipe because, you know, it's not a bat, clearly, but it's got, I don't want to say bat-like properties, but I feel like if you're going to take something that turns into a bat and turn it into a military vehicle, I feel like this fits. In terms of size, he's, I think this is what counted as a Voyager back in the day. I could be wrong, but he is comparatively huge when you look at him next to Deluxe, because, you know, it's Revenge of the Fallen. It's from several years back before budget crunches and stuff like that. The money went a lot further back then. Which is not to say that I think that, you know, oh, we're being ripped off now or anything like that. I have at least a vague understanding of how economics work. Stuff costs more as time goes on, and if they want to make money, they have to increase the cost of the stuff that they sell at the same time, reduce, like, it's complex, and yes, I'm not giving Hasbro a free pass for any of this stuff. They're definitely taking the piss in some cases, but it's fine. It's completely unrealistic to expect this from a Voyager these days. So it's fine. Mindwipe's transformation is actually relatively straightforward. It's just there is a little bit of nuance when it comes to order of operations. Like, you don't want to try and separate the front of the jet before you untab what are basically the knee spikes from the wings. And then also, I haven't noticed any stress marks, I don't think. I've been paying more attention to it every time I transform this guy. I haven't transformed him that much since I got him, but separating those arms is a little bit scary. That tab is, I feel like, maybe a little too sticky. It's not like alarmingly tight, it's more like the way that it settles in clips in a little too solidly. So it's not so much the friction, but rather the clip system that they use to attach it in the first place. It's just something you gotta be careful with. I will say though, I really like the way that that upper body just kind of rolls around to both tuck inside of the center body mass and also reorient how everything goes. So now the top of the back of the fighter mode is on the underside of the torso. And at the same time, that panel that was in the center of the top of the jet mode becomes the flap covering the chest in robot mode. And here we have Mindwipe's robot mode, and this is a very unorthodox but interesting robot mode, and I like it a lot. I actually had issues with it when I first got this guy because I guess, wasn't mentally prepared for this. I don't know. All I know is I have warmed up to the design considerably since I got rid of it and got it back. He's kind of scrawny, but I think that kind of works for like a creepy bat robot man. He's got these kind of weird digitigrade stick legs, but again, I think that kind of works. And you do also have options. You can mess around with the shins if you want to make the digitigrade leg thing kind of go away. I love the way that the jet wings curl around on the shoulders, both in terms of just how it looks when they're curled around and the fact that you've got a little bit of automorph there that causes those spikes to come out and causes the wingtips to bend in. The color breakup is really nice, where you've got the darker gray plastic predominantly, but then you've got some like this tan and orange now that's been revealed. Like you could see a little bit of that on the underside of the vehicle mode, but you didn't really see it predominantly in vehicle mode because you're not really looking at it on the underside. So there's just a whole lot of new colors that come into this design, and it's separated out really nicely. And it's a really cool robot mode. The only thing really, like I was a little bit put off initially by the scrawny legs, in particular the shins. That does not bother me in the slightest anymore. The other issue that I had is one that I'm still not super fond of, and that is the way that they did the arms/hands, particularly the hands. There's this gimmick that they built into the figure where if you angle the hands a certain way, you can flip the knives back and they'll clip in behind the forearm, and then there's a button you can press to cause them to flip out. And that's not a terrible gimmick. The issue I have with it is you have to angle the hands at kind of an unnatural angle, and it's just kind of awkward looking, because if you want to have them in a relaxed pose with the knives put away, that doesn't look great. So I typically leave them out. I wish that they had done something like, leave the gimmick maybe, but like have it so that they can clip in when the hands are at a slightly more natural angle, maybe do something like that. But really, that's my only gripe for this guy in terms of aesthetics. I would have preferred they incorporate the cockpit section somewhere else as part of the transformation instead of turning it into a knife gimmick, which is a little weird. But other than that, I really don't have any complaints anymore. Well, okay, I have one more complaint, which I'll talk about when we talk about that head, but other than that, I have no real aesthetic complaints. Again, I love the look of this guy, the molding is great, the color separation is great. The orange, I would have thought it would bother me because it's sort of like, it's like construction orange, basically, like a traffic cone orange, but maybe a little darker, but you know what I mean. But it actually, I think, kind of works with the tan. Like, I think the tan kind of acts as a bridge between the darker gray and that orange. It kind of helps to make it all work. I don't know why, that's just how I see it. Now, as I was saying about that head, I actually really like Mindwipe's head for the most part. It's very bat-like in the way it's got those big ears on the sides, but it's also got this kind of like gas mask, which both looks kind of creepy and threatening, but also goes hand in hand with him being a jet fighter, so it just kind of makes sense. Like if you would imagine like a pilot wearing a breathing apparatus, like that kind of thing. It's got this nice angled visor and the red spot on top, which is kind of like, I guess, supposed to be his mind control gem. I don't know. It sits on a bit of a scrawny neck, but again, I think it kind of works considering this guy's whole deal. And I think it's a really cool looking head with the one thing that I'm not super keen on. And that one thing is the eyes. I don't necessarily think it's bad that you can see the eyes behind the visor. I just wish they weren't so small and beady. Arguably, he's supposed to be a creepy mind control Batman, so tiny beady eyes that you can see poking through this red visor It makes a kind of sense, but I just am not that thrilled by it. I do kind of wish that those eyes were either not visible or maybe not painted to make them not stand out as much. I don't hate it. I just, kind of wish that it was a little bit different. Now, in terms of articulation, the head is on a ball joint. So you get the turn, you get some left and right tilt, you get some up and down tilt, but then the neck is also on its own swivel, so the neck can go up and down. The arms can do a full 360. They can go out almost 90 degrees. You do get a bicep swivel, you get a double jointed elbow, but because of the bits all around the shoulder and the forearm, you're not going to get more than, it's hard to say for sure because of the shape of the forearm, but I feel like you're either getting 90 or slightly under 90 degrees of bend at the elbow. The wrists do not rotate, but they can move up and down if you want them to. And then you've got the spring-loaded knife gimmick. The waist does rotate. The hips can go forward to almost 90 and can go back way past 90. They can go out way past 90. You get a thigh rotation. The knee is a single joint, but it bends really far because of the transformation. If you have the shins out, you can also move the shins in or out. And then the feet can move up and down. You don't get any tilt. In terms of size, Mindwipe is really tall, as you'd probably expect. Most of his bulk is in the upper body, but he's still quite tall. I want to say possibly modern leader height, maybe a little bit taller. And he looks pretty good with his Skystalker buddy next to him. I will say, though, I kind of wish that the darker plastic on Mindwipe was a little bit closer to the black that they used on Skystalker rather than this really dark greenish gray. It's fine on its own, but like looking at them side by side, it really drives it home that I feel like Mindwipe could be just a little bit darker with darker plastic, but then maybe it wouldn't work as well with the tan and then orange plastics. Who knows? I feel like we can't do a Mindwipe and Skystalker video without doing, the thing. So, to combine Skystalker with Mindwipe, this is the video that I used for reference. It's an older video, and it is a little bit hard to follow along, and a lot of it is just kind of feeling it out. The basic thing that you need to remember is when you transform all of that, you want to roll back Mindwipe's torso, and there are these semicircular grooves in the midsection area, in that orange plastic. You want to get Skystalker in there, situated in a way so that his arms are going through those semicircular grooves. From there, you're open to a lot of different interpretations. Like, you can do basically whatever you want. There's no real solid way to lock the combined mode together, but essentially you get those arms in there. Once Skystalker's in place, you roll Mindwipe's torso back down to try and kind of hold everything together. Then you move Skystalker's arms up, and you want to keep the kind of plated, spiky sections pointed forward. Move them up along the front of the torso. You move up the wings. The video that I used for reference put the wings behind that spring-loaded plate. I decided not to do that, but you do that, and that basically gives him his Skystalker chest armor. And then from there, you can flare out the wings on the back. You can flare out the wings on the shoulders if you want. You can also do a few different things with Skystalker's legs. I personally just roll them up and kind of tuck them underneath the geometry of the back of Mindwipe so that they kind of function as intakes or boosters or whatever. And because he's meant to be armored, I kind of de-transform his shins so that it makes his legs look a little bit more armored as well. And what we're left with is a pretty cool looking combination. This is an armored up Mindwipe that I would not want to mess with. Unfortunately, because of the way all of this comes together and the way that the torso doesn't quite go in the way it normally does, he's kind of left looking down. There's really no way to have Mindwipe lift his head up any further than this. I do kind of wonder if maybe you could carve a groove into the back of the head so that it could tilt up more on that ball socket. I don't know. But point is, he's kind of stuck partially looking down, which works if you want to do that cool anime pelvis thrust forward look, but it's a little bit weird. It requires a little bit of balancing, but it does look really cool. And of course, because of the way that all of this is situated, you can do things differently. You can mix things up, you can take the axes out of Skystalker's wings and clip them somewhere or peg them somewhere. You can bend the arms in a different way if you want. You've got lots of different options for how you approach this. This is just one way of doing it. The main thing is to get his arms and shoulders through those semicircular grooves in Mindwipe's torso. Once you got that done, then you've got a lot of options. And now this is happening. Yeah. She actually jumped up onto my lap while I was trying to do this, and that made it interesting. Anyway, that is going to do it for Revenge of the Fallen Mindwipe, and by extension, Skystalker, kind of, even though, like I said, I already covered Skystalker. And I do really like Mindwipe. The only real main gripe I have with this is the whole knife thing, and I've gotten to a point where I can look past that. I regret that I got rid of him in the first place, but I do not intend to get rid of him anymore. This one's going to be sticking around. At least that's what I'm planning. Who knows who knows if that'll change, but for now I'm planning on keeping him around. Isn't that right? Isn't that right? Mm-hmm. Oh, also there are fan modes for Mindwipe that make him look kind of like a bat. I have not messed around with any of those, but they're out there. I'm pretty sure there are a couple of threads on TFW about it. If you want to do it, that's also an option, which is pretty cool. It's a very versatile figure. And yeah, it's just a really cool figure that is regrettably not super easy to find. Well, it's not true. It's not that it's difficult to find. It's difficult to find for a decent price. Point is, it's a cool figure, and if you can find it for a good price and you're interested, I would highly recommend getting it. But that is enough about what I think. What do you all think of Revenge of the Fallen Mindwipe, or the combination with Skystalker, or any of the repaints that this figure's got? This is the deco that I prefer. Anyway, that is going to do it, so thank you everybody for watching, and remember, art is more than meets the eye. And we'll say goodbye.